Hello and welcome back to a gameplay for all seasons. In today's video, I want to talk about the trailer of Hogwarts Legacy. Now, I know this hasn't come out very recently. It's been out there a while, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, why am I making a video about this now? Well, the reason I'm making a video about this now is I have rewatched the trailer once or twice, or in fact many times recently, just looking at all the different things going on there. And I think being this far down with all the different thoughts and conversations and things that you've read on the internet and things like that, I think you can look at the trailer with a slightly different eye and a different perspective than perhaps I would have looked at it right at the very beginning. And in this video, I want to discuss the most interesting things that I have seen rewatching that video that I think, having read the internet and things people are talking about, how that is impacted by the things that we see in the trailer. At this point, I'm going to stop the trailer running on this video at the moment. We're going to watch something else Wizarding World related, and right at the end of this video, we're going to watch the trailer again with the sound on after we've gone through this and after I've discussed these points. So there is a lot of interesting things that can be drawn from the very beginning of the trailer. So if you watch the bit right at the beginning where the cart is coming in, it sort of comes into view and it's shaking around a little bit and the owl's on it and flies away, there is actually quite a lot of thoughts that come out for me from that scene. Now, the interesting thing about it is I'm suspecting slightly that that might actually be the initial start to the game. And if it is, that's interesting because that suggests that someone has already stacked your cart with all the stuff that you need. Now, maybe they've stacked it with absolutely everything you need except a wand. The reason I say that is because we know from the screenshots we've seen in the past, there is one scene where you are in a wand shop. But I can't escape the feeling that I think the game may be starting like this. They've got everything on the back of that cart that you need. And I think there's just a few select items that they're going to say to you when you get there, you have to go to Hogsmeade to get, which I expect to be the wand and your animal. Which brings me on to the second point of opening scene that I want to discuss, which is the fact there is an owl on the back. Now, if you look at the owl, I'm actually suspecting that is not your animal. That is not the pet that you are taking. To me, it just looks like it's kind of hitched a ride and it's probably a bit Wizarding World to have an owl on there. I suspect very much you are going to get a choice. And as I say, I'm slightly expecting that is going to be one of the opening scenes to the game. Now, why do I say that I think that's going to be one of the opening scenes to the game? Well, that's purely because of the scene that is, which is you are going into the castle seemingly on your own on a flying carriage, which is actually at the time that this game is set, which is late 1800s, quite unusual. So it wouldn't have been unusual if it was the early 1800s, because yes, that's what people did. They went there to Hogwarts in all different ways, including carts. But this is set in the late 1800s, and how did most students get to Hogwarts at that time? Well, most of them got there on the Hogwarts Express. It wouldn't have been the Hogwarts Express we used in the films, but it was the Hogwarts Express all the same. So the fact that you don't do that makes me feel like when they say you're a late acceptance, you're actually a late acceptance slightly after the start of the term, even if that's only a few days in. That's why I think they're going to say to you, we've got all your stuff, go along, go there, you can get your wand and stuff later. That's what I think. And that's all the stuff that I get just from that scene right at the beginning. Now, shortly after that scene, when it's coming in, one of the interesting topics you see out there is lots of discussion around, will we have Quidditch in the game? Well, what we will have at least in the game is the Quidditch pitch. If you watch the video, and it's not on the screen for very long, but as the cart's coming in, you can see it's very dark, but you can see the Quidditch pitch there. So yes, they are definitely going to have the Quidditch pitch, which probably means we're going to have some sort of Quidditch in the game. Now, the next thing of interest, which is very much a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, and in fact, when you watch it, you might have to wind it back a bit to actually see this happen. But when the doors open and you see the Great Hall for the first time you go in, if you look at the table to the right in the centre, which is the Gryffindor table, it happens right before the scene changes. A ghost actually comes through that table, which is presumably either Nearly Headless Nick or Peeves. I'm expecting Nearly Headless Nick. He actually comes up through the table, but it's on there for barely any time at all, which does answer the question of, will there be ghosts in Hogwarts Legacy? Yes, there will. I mean, there absolutely had to be, because we know that they are there. We know Nearly Headless Nick is there. We know the Grey Lady's there. We know Peeves is there. So if they weren't included, that would be a massive omission. But you actually see in the trailer, which I know a lot of people haven't seen. Make sure you really carefully look out for that one. The next thing, which is slightly more of a general point, is there is a lot of scenes set in the library. You get the big portrait of the wizard, telling you to be quiet, and you get books moving around and just general scenes in the library. It takes quite a prominent position in the video. And to me, I'm quite pleased about that because I'm hoping that the library does play a big part. And the reason I say that is because I'm hoping the classes take a big part, and part of doing the classes is that you should be at the library doing things. So the fact they're doing that makes me feel like the classes may be worthwhile and will be well thought out, and dare I say it, there may be homework. So the next interesting scene is the sorting ceremony. So this is obviously your character getting sorted into the house. Now the interesting thing about this one is I know there's been a lot of discussion about who the people are around you whilst the sorting hat is on your head, and lots of suggestion that maybe the guy to the right is the headmaster. Own personal opinion here, but I don't see him being the headmaster. There's just something about him doesn't scream headmaster to me. He seems much more like a groundsman or something, but it'd be really interesting to know what your view is on that. So the next thing I wanted to mention, and I actually mentioned this in my last video because I think it is very, very interesting, is the scene in the courtyard. So the scene in the courtyard, which appears to me to be two Hufflepuffs, are talking to each other. They have their brooms. One of them holds their hand out. The broom zooms on its hand. But the really interesting bit about it is just before the scene ends, that person actually sits on the broom as if they're about to fly away, which I think suggests you may be able to fly a broomstick in this game, which I know an awful lot of people are really hoping that they can do. The next scene that I think is pretty interesting is you have what appears to be a common room. I'm going to guess either the Ravenclaw or the Slytherin, but maybe there's something obvious in there that someone else has seen, so they even know which common room it is. But there's a few students sitting around practicing magic. And the interesting thing about that scene, on the wall walking around is a cat, which plays very much into the theory of you will be able to have a pet. There'll be cats, there'll be owls, and there'll be toads. I expect there'll be the minimum you'll have, but there could be more as well. So the Dementor scene that comes shortly after that, simply, in my opinion, must be set in Azkaban. And the reason I say it's Azkaban is because you can see cell doors. It just obviously is, if you slow the video down to that point, it just looks like Azkaban. But I'm wondering whether that is a cutscene rather than play. Your character doesn't appear to be there. So I think maybe that's more of a suggestion that the Dementors are coming away from Azkaban rather than you can potentially be there. Because as I say, your character's not there. So that makes me feel like potentially you can't go there, because we do know this is going to be Hogwarts and surrounding areas. We know it's going to be Hogsmeade. We know it's going to be the Forbidden Forest. We don't know other areas. There could well be other areas, and for all we know, far-flung areas. Will Azkaban be there? Don't know. It's definitely going to be in the game because there's at least a cutscene on it. And the very last scene that I think is very interesting in the video when I watch it back now is actually the dragon scene. And the dragon scene I'm talking about is when it bursts out of some sort of wood. If I slow that down and watch that and see what's actually happening, it seems to be bursting out of a box, and actually there are numerous wizards around it. They don't look like dark wizards. Their faces are not covered. So it seems that that dragon is getting held somewhere in Hogwarts for some sort of reason, and for all intents and purposes by people who do not look like they're the villains of this game. Now, why would they be doing something like that? The immediate thing that goes into your head is maybe it's Triwizard Tournament. I can't think it is Triwizard Tournament because that is not supposed to be running at the time. It did not run in the late 1800s because it was deemed too unsafe. It didn't come back until a long time afterwards. Shouldn't be Triwizard Tournament, but it seems like there's some other reason they have that on the ground. So I think it'll be interesting to find out what that is. So I'm going to play the video now. Now, I want you to look out for these things. Tell me your thoughts on them. If there's other stuff that you have seen in there that you think is interesting, please let me know about that now. We're going to play it with the sound on, get the full experience. You may have seen it on various videos where it's not had the sound on, where you've got people talking over it, because it's an interesting thing to have as a background because it's obviously a good trailer. Have a look at all these things I've mentioned. Tell me what else you've got, and let's get into it now. And don't forget, of course, to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.
Magic, both beautiful and powerful, binds together our long history. That common bond we share is the legacy of Hogwarts. Now it is time to add your own story to these hallowed halls and, quite possibly, shape the future of the wizarding world. Every corridor, Every portrait, every stone in this castle tells the story of witches and wizards who came before. Here you will meet lifelong friends and grow into your own magical abilities in the classrooms of the world's most talented professors. And while your journey begins at Hogwarts, brewing potions, taming fantastic beasts, and mastering spells, there is a larger world beyond these walls. A world filled with dangers you can't yet imagine. An ancient knowledge long gone from this world. That strange and mysterious talent you possess may be the key to unlocking this dormant power. Your potential is limitless. But what form will it take? The journey ahead will reveal what you stand for. The choices you make now will define the legacy of Hogwarts.